still we have some work to do. So on that note, I think we'll continue our discussion on the progress reports on technical programs for the last part, that's climate change, environment, and health. May I call on the Director of Program Management to introduce this progress report. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mr. Chair, distinguished representatives. I'm pleased to present the final progress report part on climate change, environment, and health in the region. Climate change and environmental issues pose a wide range of risks for countries in the region, from increasing the burden of diseases and the frequency and the strength of extreme weather events to rises in the sea level that threaten the very existence of some Pacific islands. In an effort to confront these challenges, member states endorsed the Western Pacific Regional Framework for Action on Health and Environment on a Changing Planet at the 67th session of the Regional Committee in 2016. The framework was built around 4 strategic actions. 1, enhancing governance and leadership. 2, building networks, coalitions, and alliances. 3, evidence and communication. And 4th, strategic financing and resource mobilization. In addition, in consultations that led to the development of our shared vision for the coming 5 years for the future towards the healthiest and safest region, member states identified climate change, the environment, and health as one of the top 4 priorities. WHO is working with member states to build climate resilient health systems, to improve water and sanitation in healthcare facilities, to improve air quality in cities, and to protect the workers from occupational hazards. In relation to this agenda item, I wish to propose 2 brief presentations to update you on the subject with the permission of Honorable Mr. Chair. One is about the role of WHO Asia Pacific Center for Environment and Health located in Seoul, the Republic of Korea, to be presented by the head of the center, Dr. Marco Matusi. And the second presentation is to brief you on the 5th meeting of the Asia Pacific Parliamentary Forum on Global Health, hosted by Parliament of Republic of Fiji from the 20th to 22nd August this year. This meeting particularly focused on the climate change. It will be presented by the Director, Division of Technical Support to the Pacific, Dr. Corinne Capano. After these presentations, the Regional Committee is invited to review and comment on the work on climate change, environment, health, and the region. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, it's a really great pleasure for me to address you briefly on the Asia Pacific Center for Environment and Health in the Western Pacific region. My name is Marco Martuzzi. I'm the newly appointed head of the office. I moved to Wipro literally a few days ago after 20 plus years of work in WHO, and I'm really excited to take on this role. I very much look forward to working with you all in the near future. Next slide, please. The WHO Asia Pacific Center for Environment and Health is a geographically dispersed specialized office, what we refer to as GDSO, that operates under the leadership of the regional office. Thank you. It is hosted in Seoul, in the Republic of Korea, thanks to the general support of the government of Korea and the Seoul metropolitan government. And we are really grateful for this support. As I mentioned, the center reports to the regional director here in Manila. And it's it's being conceived to address the main environmental challenges in all WIPRO countries and areas. Notably, the setup of the center, the initial setup of the center will include 3 lines of work on air pollution, climate change, and water in the living environment. The functions of the center will be to operate in collaboration, of course, with a number of other regional and global initiatives in climate change, environment, and health, guided by the WIPRO senior management. The center will collect and synthesize evidence and shape it for use in member states to develop health-friendly policies. In developing and implementing health-friendly policies in climate change, environment, and health. We will also support member states in strengthening capacities in climate change, environment, and health. Now, the center, I think, builds on very solid foundations, and it has a very, very exciting opportunity ahead. We have, of course, in the background, the very important framework of the Sustainable Development Agenda, the 2030 Global Agenda for Sustainable Development. We have GPW 13, which is very strong on the role of environmental determinants. There is a newly developed global strategy for environment and health, the global WHO strategy. And in the region, there are important bases on which our work can be carried out. As Dr. Liu mentioned, first and foremost, the Western Pacific Regional Framework for Action in Environment and Health. So we have the background, very much a solid background in place, and a framework for action that guides us as to what to do. And this comes from very extensive consultation with member states. So we're very confident that this will enable us to work in a way that maximizes the benefits for member states. There's also a very, very promising opportunity in that the white paper for WIPRO includes, of course, climate change, environment, and health as one of the 4 priorities. But the operational shifts are designed in a way that will support and address what are the current needs, I think, in climate change, environment, and health. If you consider, for example, challenges that come from the question that business as usual is not an option anymore, we need innovation, and the white paper is very strong on innovation. The challenges in environment and health and climate change nowadays are extremely complex, and we need, as the white paper prescribes, systems-based approaches to address them. There is a very strong and visible case of environmental inequalities and environmental injustice, and the white paper pays a lot of attention to working in a way that we can reach the unreached. There is a need to use the vast evidence that we have to make stronger, more persuasive arguments through new narratives that can reach bigger and more influential audiences. And again, the operational shift on communication comes in really to the point, very relevant for that. And more, the other operational shifts are also very relevant, but I won't take it too long. And I really wish to thank you for your attention. And once again, I look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martino. Next, please.
This one. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I will summarize what happened at the 5th meeting of the Asia-Pacific Parliamentarian Forum on Global Health. So the Parliamentarian Forum was established in 2015 by the Republic of Korea with support from the World Health Organization. It is actually a platform for parliamentarians to exchange ideas, enhance capacities, and foster collaboration for health. There are currently 27 participating countries across the Asia-Pacific region, but it's actually open to 30 countries. It's a key component of WHO's support to member states in strengthening legal frameworks for health through the whole of government approach. The engagement with parliamentarians is actually a new way, and it's part of this initiative of going beyond the health sector to help us really reaching out beyond health. So I'm going to say something obvious. The title of the presentation was the 5th Asia-Pacific Parliamentarian Forum on Global Health, which means that there has been 4 before the 5th one. So the first forum took place in 2015, and the focus was global health security. It was held in the Republic of Korea in Seoul, and 6 countries attended this first session of the Parliamentarian Forum. The number 2 meeting took place also in Seoul in 2016, and the focus was health in the SDGs. And 19 countries attended this second forum. The third one focused on NCD and aging. It was held in Tokyo in 2017 and attended by 22 countries. The fourth meeting was on universal health coverage, and it was held here in this room. As you can see on the picture, you can recognize the horseshoe and all the nice faces in the middle of the horseshoe. So it was co-chaired by the Senate and the House Health Committee, and 25 countries attended this meeting. So now the 5th meeting was held in Fiji, and 27 countries attended. It was, the focus was climate change and health. It was, the meeting was chaired by the Fiji current Speaker of Parliament, who is also the former President of the Republic of Fiji, Ratu Epeli Neilatikau. So why did the forum select climate change as a theme for the 5th meeting? And why do we need parliamentarians discussing this climate change and health agenda? Because we are actually at a critical point in history. With just 11 years now to stop runaway global heating, climate change is actually a health issue, impacting people's health and in both direct and indirect ways. Without urgent action, climate change will continue to impact human health and will threaten development gains. So we need parliamentarians, and we need them to be convinced. So we need to convince them of the climate change crisis we are facing. And we need them to understand that we need to put health as the center of the discussion, to put health at the center of the climate change negotiations, but also at the center of the actions and beyond the health sector. So we need increased commitment around mitigation and adaptation to protect the health of the people of the Asia-Pacific region and beyond. And I just would like to use the words of Dr. Kasai. We need to create policy win-wins for health, and parliamentarians are the people who can drive this kind of change. We need to ensure health is part of the discussion. Without health, we have nothing. So this is what we discussed, actually, what was discussed at the forum in Fiji. So the question we put in front of the parliamentarian was, what can you do as parliamentarian to protect and promote health in a changing climate? So actually, parliamentarians are responsible for legislating, approving budgets, providing oversight, and directing portfolios in health impacting sectors. So their involvement and leadership is key in addressing the climate crisis and its health consequences. So they can do many, many things. They can strengthen legal frameworks to protect human health from climate change. They can secure financing to strengthen health systems in preparation for increased demand due to climate change. They can ensure governments implement policy and are effective and accountable. They can use their voice to represent their constituencies and ensure they are empowered and their needs are heard and met. All sectors can take steps to reduce emissions and in doing so protect health. Parliamentarians can ensure collaboration across transport, agriculture, energy and environmental sectors. They can also create and support international platforms like this forum to enable information sharing and cooperation across borders. Actions taken by other sectors to mitigate climate change can have added benefit for health. And actually, the word you saw previously on the slide were those that came the strongest during this forum: legislation, advocate, legislate. That's really the words of the parliamentarians. So during the meeting, there was a field visit to 4 different sites. And the participants discussed ways to identify and address the health impact of climate change and to protect vulnerable communities. So when they visited these 4 locations in the northwest of the Fiji Islands, Viti Levu, the main island, they saw climate impact and mitigation efforts firsthand. So this is, for example, in Namoli village, how actions are taken to adapt to rising sea levels. On the left part of the slide, you can see a sea wall, which is being built to prevent the intrusion of seawater in a community. And actually with this sea wall, Fiji, this community is reclaiming a big part of the land. So it's really a very positive action and very good activity. That was the Namoli village. Then we went to Koreipita village, where the parliamentarian could see the resilient infrastructures and how community are engaged in being also resilient communities. On the left, we stopped in Tukuni restaurant, where parliamentarians could see and taste the sustainable crops that are done over there, and actually how community is involved in this activity, including, and that was very interesting, how they involve disabled people in this activity. So that was a field trip, but of course there was a lot of discussion. And the meeting came up with a NADI communique, a commitment to action. I'm not going to go through it all because it's a little bit long, but we put here the key actions, the key things on 2 slides. So the first one was the parliamentarian urged the fellow parliamentarians to advocate for inclusion of health in all relevant portfolios and policies, for example, to strengthen legal framework to enhance governance across sectors, to approve sufficient national appropriation and mobilize sustainable financing, including for climate resilient health systems, and that's the key point. Represent the interest of constituencies to ensure that the needs of all are met, and that's about leaving no one behind, including when we talk about climate change and health. Maintain oversight to facilitate coordination across sectors and ensure government accountability and transparency in the implementation of policies. And engage in international partnership and platform to share experience between countries and strengthen international cooperation. But the parliamentarian also called on WHO to take a number of actions, to continue to provide normative guidance and technical assistance to countries, to develop innovative mechanisms to scale up support to member states, to engage in partnerships and mobilize expertise and resources within and beyond the health sector, strengthen engagement with parliamentarians to enhance the role of parliamentarians in addressing the impact of climate change and health systems. So that just in a nutshell what the commitment came up with, but I would like just to show you in a more interesting way a small video that summarizes actually the outcome of the Asia Pacific Parliamentarian Forum that was held in Fiji. Can we play the video, please? Thank you very much for your attention. I'm giving the floor back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Dr. Corinne Capuano, our WHO representative for South Pacific and Director at the Pacific Technical Support. So now I would like to invite any comments from the representatives. I call on the representative of Singapore.
Thank you, Chair. Singapore commends WIPRO for its efforts in working with member states to implement the Western Pacific Regional Framework for Action on Health and Environment on a Changing Planet. The framework reflects the increasing recognition that human health and the health of our planet cannot be delinked. Singapore contributes around 0.11% of greenhouse gas emissions. While Singapore is a small emitter, we are committed to doing our full share to realize ambitious action on climate change. Singapore is the first country in Southeast Asia to introduce an economy-wide carbon tax of US $360 per ton of carbon dioxide emissions, with no exemptions. We have pledged under the Paris Agreement to reduce our emissions intensity by 36% from 2005 levels by 2030, and to stabilize our greenhouse gas emissions such that they do not increase further after around 2030. Singapore had an impactful year of climate action in 2018. Besides government policies geared towards sustainability, we saw overwhelming support from the ground, with green initiatives championed by individuals, schools, businesses, and non-profit organizations. This year, 2019, has been designated our year towards zero waste, paving the way towards our vision of a circular economy for sustainable waste and resource management. As a small, low-lying, and highly urbanized city-state with limited land and natural resources, Singapore is particularly vulnerable to the effects of climate change. We are thus planning decades ahead to implement adaptation measures that will strengthen our climate resilience. A critical component of these efforts is our investment in research and development to create innovative solutions. I will highlight some of our climate change mitigation efforts in two key areas of public health: control of vector-borne diseases and air pollution. Over the next few decades, global warming will likely worsen the transmission of mosquito-borne diseases in Singapore and in other countries. This threat is already evident in 2019, where Singapore and our neighbors have experienced high mosquito populations and a surge in dengue cases, coinciding with warmer weather. Global warming has also expanded the geographical range of mosquito vectors, leading to instances of dengue transmission even in temperate countries. Singapore appreciates the World Health Organization's leadership and guidance in the area of integrated vector management. Singapore's Integrated Vector Control Program will go a long way towards mitigating the climate change-driven rise in mosquito-borne diseases. Even so, our National Environment Agency continues to augment the program by building in new tools and innovations so that we can better confront the threat of climate change. One example is our island-wide mosquito surveillance system, which comprises a network of more than 50,000 in-house developed gravitraps that provide timely sensing of the mosquito population across the country. We are able to produce a virtual map of mosquito infestation in Singapore, and this information improves situational awareness and allows us to target vector control resources to high-risk areas. We are also working towards the deployment of male Wolbachia-carrying Aedes aegypti mosquitoes to suppress vector populations and reduce the risk of dengue, Zika, and chikungunya transmission. Singapore's highly urbanized, high-rise housing estates pose unique challenges that are distinct from trial sites in other countries. Lessons learned in our field trials will therefore be applicable to many cities facing the same dengue threat. Results from our Wolbachia trials are extremely promising. Continuous releases have led to a 90% suppression of the Aedes aegypti populations in the study sites. Moving forward, we are investing in automated technologies to help us scale up releases to cover bigger areas. This will allow us to protect a larger community of residents against disease. In Singapore and elsewhere, transboundary haze pollution has been a serious and recurrent environmental health threat. Smoke from land and forest fires jeopardizes the health of millions of people and is linked to conditions such as respiratory disease, heart disease, and stroke. Besides their immediate health impacts, these massive, uncontrolled fires also have long-term implications for the planet and its inhabitants. They eliminate carbon sinks and generate carbon emissions that set back our fight against climate change. Singapore has taken early measures to protect our air quality. We have advocated for closer regional and international cooperation to address haze, and we enacted the Transboundary Haze Pollution Act in 2014. More needs to be done. The WHO is well placed to take the lead in quantifying the health and socioeconomic impacts of smoke haze from land and forest fires. We urge the WHO to commission a comprehensive regional study to fully understand the impact, raise awareness of the issue, and guide the development of policies and strategies to minimize the health and climate impacts of transboundary haze. Singapore supports Wipro's efforts to address the health impacts of climate change, and we look forward to working closely with member states on this front. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Now may I call on representatives of Tonga.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Aldi, honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen. Tonga wishes to take this opportunity to thank WHO for organizing the amazing trip to Tonga by the Director General, Dr. Tedros, a couple of weeks ago. It was the first ever visit by the WHO Director General to Tonga, and the country is still talking about it. He had a chiefly title bestowed upon him by one of the high chiefs. It's called Vaito Kehemoui or Mapovaya. So you may hear us addressing the DG in future with this title. As noted by the DG Director General's opening address for this 70th session, he visited the site of a rugby field where Tonga played one of its earliest rugby matches against Fiji in 1926. The rugby field in 1926 was located at the beautiful beachfront area. It is now inundated by approaching oceans and completely underwater, with very little evidence of its former glory. We are convinced that this is the impact of climate change. Tonga has implemented several activities to build the resilience of its health systems to natural disasters and impacts of climate change. They include a project supported by the Asian Development Bank through Pacific Resilience Program, where we have been able to relocate inland the community hospital at the Hapai district, away from the encroaching oceans. We have strengthened our environmental health section to be more effective in overseeing disaster risk management and climate change adaptation activities. With the assistance of the Government of New Zealand through ESR, we have integrated health needs into the new joint National Action Plan on Disaster Risk Management and Climate Change Adaptation for Tonga. In spite of these good initiatives, we still feel that they are a bit fragmented and they need to be better aligned to the Western Pacific Regional Framework for Action on Health and Environment on the Changing World and the Pacific Islands Action Plan on Climate Change and Health. Tonga looks forward to continue working closely with the WHO to strengthen our governance and leadership in this area, provide stronger evidence for investment, and to facilitate access to GCF and other sources of funds to help build our resilience. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Now, may I call on representatives of Vietnam.
Thank you, Chair. Vietnam would like to thank the Secretariat for the progress report and highly appreciates action taken to address the health impacts of the climate change and environment in the Western Pacific region. We would like to support the Regional Committee for the Western Pacific to note the progress report on climate change, environment, and health, and suggest that WHO provide guidance and technical support for Western Pacific region member states to implement the regional strategy and action plan to health on health, environment, and climate change that have been adopted by WIPRO. In addition, it's recommended that WHO provide support to all member states in the region to have a better access to Green Climate Fund and other resources for achieving the purpose. The Ministry of Health of Vietnam has already adopted the National Action Plan to respond to climate change of the health sector in the stage of 2019-2030 and the vision to 2050. Based on the initial success of the National Action Plan for implementing green, clean, and beautiful healthcare facilities, in order to implement the resolution WHA 72 on WASH, WASH in healthcare facilities issued in June 2019, the Ministry of Health of Vietnam would like to go further in building healthcare facilities for resilient to climate change, green and renewable energy use, and no plastic pollution. We would highly appreciate if WHO provide technical and financial support to Vietnam for implementation of those plans. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, may I call on representative of China?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Chinese delegation thanks the Secretariat for the report. Climate change is a common challenge faced by all the countries. Working together to deal with climate change and protect our Mother Earth is for the future of mankind. China has been actively participating the global efforts against climate change. We have practiced innovation, coordination, green opening, and benefit sharing development concepts. We are dedicated to realize high-quality development and are committed to the green, low-carbon, and sustainable development, emphasizing that health should be in all. In the year 2018, the unit GDP CO2 emission is reduced by 45.8% compared with that of 2005, exceeding the yearly target and equaling to the CO2 emission reduction by 5.26 billion tons. China has initiated the Healthy Environment Promotion campaigns. It is one of the 15 campaigns of the Healthy China Action. Also, water, air, soil pollution prevention and treatment action plans are released. In environmental health, there are more than 170 national standards issued. China has already set up a nationwide environmental health monitoring network. The drinking water quality in both urban and rural areas has been closely monitored, covering all the counties and 95% of the townships and the villages throughout the country. Also, based on the overall monitoring of environmental health, we have strengthened the big data use in environment and health. And also, we are closely watching the diseases which are related with climate and environment changes, such as the vector-borne, intestinal, and respiratory infections. We have strengthened scientific studies and emergency response concerning the health impacts. The Chinese delegation commends the WIPRO region to include climate change into the thematic priorities for the next 5 years. We call on the parties to strengthen cooperation and build a clean, beautiful, prosperous, and common community of shared future. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, may I call on representative of Fiji?
Honorable Chair, Fiji notes and supports the progress report at hand. Fiji is a member of a privileged group of countries that are located within the cyclone belt and the ring of fire in the Pacific region. So we entertain regular visitations of cyclones, floods, and droughts that are often damaging to the health, infrastructure, and also our economies. With the natural disasters we are witnessing, an increase in climate-sensitive diseases such as dengue fever, typhoid, leptospirosis, and diarrheal diseases. We've also witnessed the rise of mental health issues such as anxiety and stress for those adversely affected by climate change disasters. In response to this, in addition to the national strategies to address climate change impacts, the ministry developed the Climate Change Health Strategic Plan for 2016-2020 And this plan was developed using the lessons learned from the piloting climate change adaptation to protect human health project, a global environmental facility project implemented through WHO and was based on the 6 building blocks and 10 components of the WHO framework on building climate resilient health systems. The strategic plan has informed the country's national adaptation plan, whose implementation is supervised by the Fiji National Climate Change Division, which sits in the Ministry of Economy. Our actions and efforts are guided by the framework provided in the strategic plan. They are: one, we are working on upgrading our health facility infrastructure to be climate resilient, which includes relocation to suitable sites that are not prone to the impact of natural disasters. We have 30 health facilities that we have to move. We are working together with our communities and responsible government agencies on increasing efforts to control and eliminate climate-sensitive diseases in Fiji. We have strengthened our capacity to respond to disasters through the establishment of FEMAT and the commissioning of our hospital ship, marine vessel Vevueti, and capacity building for our staff in disaster response. And we've been able to achieve that from all the lessons that we've learned from Tropical Cyclone Winston, which was a Category 5 cyclone. We're strengthening our laboratory diagnostic capability through partnership to improve turnaround time of diagnosis and respond to disease outbreaks related to natural disasters. Fiji commends the WHO Secretariat for the report and seek WHO and donor partners' assistance to implement the Western Pacific Regional Framework for Action on Health and Environment on a Changing Planet and the Pacific Islands Action Plan on Climate Change and Health through one, ongoing support for capacity building such as training, educational courses, and outreach trial program for our emergency response team. Two, developing and enhancing the early warning system for Fiji, such as the Regional Integrated Multi-Hazard Early Warning System and the Gravid Aedes Trap for dengue outbreak. And three, enhance laboratory diagnostic capability for infectious diseases. Honorable Chair, when the Director General talked to us a few days ago from Geneva, he talked about his visit to Tuvalu and having had the opportunity to meet and talk to a young 15-year-old Tuvalu called Valu, and the fact that Valu and his friends were not willing to leave a sinking Tuvalu. Honorable Chair, our Prime Minister in Tuvalu shared some sentiments that he shared 2 years ago in 2017. And I would like to quote him. He said, "But if God forbid that effort fails because of industrial nations that continue to put their own interests above our own, Fiji will offer you a home. The people of Tuvalu, we have made the same offer to you, to your neighbors in Kiribati. That offer remains. Fiji will take Tuvaluans and Kiribati if they sink. And it is therefore imperative that we champion as a group climate change, because this is the battle of our own existence as a people, the existence of our cultures and the existence of our ancestral homes and the existence of the fabric of the way of life in which we live." I thank you.
Thank you. Now, may I call on representatives of Cambodia?
Honorable Chair, Dr. Kasai, WHO Western Regional Director, Honorable Minister. Cambodia, like other countries in Western Pacific region, has been experiences on the impact posed by climate change that make potential threat to human and animal health, ecological stability, loss of community and social connection. The area of highest priority that are associated with weather and climate variability in Cambodia are vector-borne, dengue particularly, waterborne and foodborne, and the health impact of extreme events as identified in the National Climate Change Action Plan for Public Health 2014-2018. In responding to this priority, the sectoral level priority intervention of the Ministry of Health is to promote better governance, coordination, and partnership for climate change adaptation and disease risk reduction in health sector. Support the development of climate-informed health early warning system to enhance dengue surveillance, build resilience of the existing health service delivery system to respond and cope with the impact of climate change and disease risk. The Health National Adaptation Plan 2019-2023 is being developed, aiming to contribute to reduce morbidity, mortality, injury, and health vulnerable to climate variability and extreme weather, and to contribute to the implementation of strategic objectives in the climate change strategic plan for public health, the climate strategic change strategic plan 2014-2023. Cambodia has started implementation of the CHEF project, building resilience of health system in Asian LDC to climate change, led by WHO and UNDP 2019-2023, with the objective in line with the regional framework for action on health and environment on the changing planet 2016. At the national level, intervention related to climate change, Cambodia undertaken those include the establishment and strengthening of the technical working group on climate change and health, and its role is to advocate and promote health priority in the national interministerial technical working group on climate change. Data sharing agreement are built for exchange of climate and meteorological data between the Ministry of Water Resources and Meteorology and the Ministry of Health for strengthening of dengue surveillance. Contribution to the strategic National Action Plan for Disaster Risk Reduction 2019-2023 and National Strategy for Water Supply, Sanitation and Hygiene 2011-2025, Cambodia is committed to contribute to SDG Target 9, include safety, manage drinking water and sanitation. Water and sanitation in health facility is one of the main priority, and the national guideline for WASH in health facility was developed with WHO support. Cambodians look forward to working collaboratively and effectively with member states with WHO support and development partner to build a better health system resilient to the climate change in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, may I call on representative of Papua New Guinea?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to all together. Papua New Guinea note the progress on the WIPRO regional report on climate change and environmental health. Papua New Guinea is one of the Western Pacific islands experiencing submerging of smaller islands and atolls, displacing people, sea eroding and washing off parts of the highlands and leaving people homeless and foodless or nothing. Papua New Guinea will be home to the first refugees due to climate change. Some people might have been aware of the Carteret Islands in the autonomous region of Papua New Guinea is sinking, and the island people are being relocated to the mainland of the autonomous region of Bougainville. Papua New Guinea actions over the past year has been focused on working to implement the Western Pacific Regional Framework for Action on Health and Environment on a Changing Planet, which has 4 strategic action areas: enhancing governance and leadership. Number 2, building networks, coalitions, and alliances. Number 3, evidence and communication. And number 4, strategic financing and resource mobilization. What has PNG done on the control of climate change, environmental health, and health? Mr. Chair, currently the National Department of Health, Conservation and Environmental Health Protection Authority, SIPA for short, is conducting building climate change resilient baseline study on water supply and sanitation projects funded by the Asian Development through SIPA in 5 of the most vulnerable provinces of the 22 provinces of PNG. The results of our studies in 4 of the provinces conducted prove climate change effects are real in terms of water supply and sanitation. Our fear is water and supply sanitation-related disease outbreaks is possible or likely if no proactive actions, such as building climate change resilient projects in these affected island communities. PNG will be taking the following steps. The National Department of Health, in consultation with CIPA, WHO, and partners, are undertaking the following. We are finalizing the draft environmental health and climate change policy before approval by Parliament this year. And we have developed a climate change impact strategy and action plan that is currently being circulated for consultation before approval. Mr. Chair, PNG takes notes of the progress in addressing the health impacts of climate change and environment in the Western Pacific region. And number 2, PNG seek WHO assistance to address climate change and environment and its impact on health in the country. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Now, may I call on representative of Republic of Korea.
Thank you, Chair. In the Western Pacific region, we face emerging threats to health of our people from environmental issues such as climate change and air pollution. As the importance of environmental health grows, countries in the region are placing more interest in the issue. Mindful these challenges, I would like to share that my government is hosting the WHO geographically dispersed specialized office on environmental health in Seoul. The center will be undertaking tasks related to life safety, air pollution, and climate change. Korea will ensure that the center contributes to strengthening environmental health capability of the Western Pacific region and play an active role in resolving this issue. The WHO Constitution states that the objective of the WHO shall be the attainment by all peoples of the highest possible level of health, and that this is one of the fundamental rights of every human being. My government acknowledges and appreciates the strong effort by the WHO to fulfill this objective. However, as we stand here, there is a concern that the Western Pacific region may face a potential health issue, which in some way might be as serious as climate change and air pollution. Recently, media has been reporting the government of Japan is reviewing marine discharge as an option to dispose of the Fukushima contaminated water. Marine discharge of contaminated water, if not adequately purified, may bring about a significant impact to the health of the people in the region. It's not a national issue confined to Japan, but an issue of the WHO. With that, Republic of Korea sincerely requests that we follow in collaboration with the international organization, including the IAEA, to support Japan in finding a measure that can minimize the possible consequences which may be caused by Japan's disposal of contaminated water. And I hope for transparent disclosure of relevant information to prevent unnecessary confusion in the Western Pacific region. I hope the information sharing will help us find a reasonable way to protect not only the health of the people of Japan, but also that of the Western Pacific region. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Now, may I call on representative of the Philippines?
Thank you, Chair. The Philippines recognizes the actions taken and the progress of the region and member states in the implementation of initiatives in the context of the Western Pacific Regional Framework for Action on Health and Environment on a Changing Planet. We are pleased to report the following key achievements in support of climate change, environment, and health. 1. We have activated the Interagency Committee on Environmental Health to foster multi-sectoral collaboration between the health and environment departments, along with 10 other agencies, to tackle relevant and emerging environmental health issues and actions. Its sectoral task forces are instrumental in coordinating actions and responses related to the national dengue epidemic and the transboundary haze pollution, and other urgent and emerging environmental health concerns. The committee is also instrumental in updating the National Environmental Health Action Plan with support from the WHO. 2. To reinforce the collaborative work of the Department of Health and the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, the President signed Proclamation number 595 declaring September 26th of every year as the World Environmental Health Day in the Philippines to serve as venue for knowledge sharing and advocacy on relevant environmental health issues and actions. In collaboration with WHO, we have been celebrating World Environmental Health Day since 2017. 3. At the regional level, the Philippines has been leading the Asia-Pacific Regional Forum on Health and the Environment, the implementation of its work plan, and the Manila Declaration. In September of this year, the Philippines hosted the 10th high-level officials meeting attended by 30 countries, which agreed to update the governance mechanisms of the forum to formally change the forum title and to expand membership to all 51 countries in the Asia-Pacific. The terms of reference of the forum thematic working groups will also be updated and the new TWG will be created. The Philippines has formally turned over the chairship to Indonesia. Lastly, the Philippines also has current initiatives on green and climate-resilient healthcare facilities in support to the nationally determined contribution and participation in multilateral dialogues on climate change, environment, and health. The WHO has been supporting the Philippines in facilitating the technical meetings between the Department of Health and the Green Climate Fund. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, may I call on representatives of Tuvalu?
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Chair, Excellency RD Dr. Kasai, distinguished delegates. Climate change is a cross-cutting issue, and the way to address health effects of climate change should therefore be equally multidimensional. Tuvalu has long been advocating for the actions on the long-term effects of climate change. Unfortunately, as with the initial voices calling for action and the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, the focus was always on environmental effects of climate change. The obvious question that remained unanswered was, why do we advocate for the environment, for the coastal erosions, for the turtles, for the mangroves, for the sea and the corals? It is because all these things affect the people's lives and their livelihoods. They affect the health of our people and directly goes towards our ability to adapt to climate change effects and their impacts on our health. As we all know, without our health, everything else will be of no value to the individual, to our families, our communities, and indeed our countries. The science of climate change is well established. It is now time to act. So Tuvalu is glad to see that WHO has finally got on board the climate change train and started concrete actions on laying the foundations for health-focused adaptation programs to address the numerous issues identified in the report. But let us not be complacent now and say, well, we have established a framework, so we must be getting on top of it. Tuvalu wants it noted that while we can be prepare for the obvious and immediate effects of climate change in things like smart health facilities, climate change-induced disaster preparedness, frequent outbreaks of vector-borne diseases, and the like, we must also be alert to the slow onset effects of climate change. The changing nature of diseases and viral profiles goes hand in hand with the need to also look at how we prepare our health workforces in our training to allow them to be able to deal with the future impacts of climate change. All these are reflected in Tuvalu's recently completed climate change and health profile, providing a guiding document on approaches to addressing the issue of health and climate change readiness. So Tuvalu welcomes WHO's focus on upstream determinants of health across all sectors. And as we say in health, health is a cross-cutting issue, and so is climate change. The engagement of WHO with other UN agencies in combating the health impacts of climate change is vitally important. And for our own health administrations, we must be setting up genuine partnerships with our other sectors, such as education, environmental departments, agriculture, ministries of foreign affairs for international policy advocacy, and dare I say, finance. Tuvalu wishes to thank COICA and WHO for the great support Tuvalu has received through the program of climate change health systems readiness, workforce training, and related climate change and health programs. Following from the parliamentarians' recent meeting on UHC and health, as alluded to by Dr. Capuano, Tuvalu's new incoming government has categorically stated in their strategic policy statement that Tuvalu's approach to the effects of climate change will be more localized and focused on the adaptation for its people. And when we say people being able to adapt, it should be obvious that we are talking about the health of our people. Tuvalu further shares this vision for its people with the people of our region. Tuvalu will do everything it can to support WHO's efforts on this very important issue. And as our friend from Fiji stated earlier on, it is a matter of sinking or swimming for us in Tuvalu. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Now, may I call on representative of Kiribati?
Honorable Chairman, Regional Director, Honorable Ministers, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, Mary and good afternoon. Kiribati is also concerned on the threat of climate change on health. Our people are also facing health threats due to pollution of our lagoons and vast ocean, buildup of solid waste, and increased salinity of underground water sources. One other threat is on the inability of our people to grow enough local food to feed their family because of the extreme weather events, such as king tides and seawater intrusion that destroys local food crops, leading to food insecurity. Kiribati has been affected and will continue to be affected by climate change-related health issues. These include water safety and waterborne diseases, food safety and foodborne diseases, and vector-borne diseases with new emerging ones such as Chikungunya, Zika, and dengue. Kiribati has taken a range of actions in climate change adaptations, which includes the following responses. The National Adaptation Programs of Action 2004 to 2007, the nationally determined contributions 2015, signs on the Paris Agreement and the UNFCCC 2016, Climate Change Policy 2018, the Kiribati Joint Implementation Plan for Climate Change and Disaster Risk Management, which is known as KCIP 2020 to 2023. And coastal resilience, which continues to be improved with further construction of seawalls where appropriate, beach enhancement, and expanded planting of mangroves. Through the Ministry of Health and Medical Services, we are currently working closely with our development partners, in particular WHO, through the Korea International Cooperation Agency, or COICA, project to ensure that we have climate change resilient health systems. Through this example of collaboration and partnership with our development partner and donors, we will continue to expand to work with other relevant key partners to ensure health issues are well addressed. Whilst we are progressively making effort to cope and adapt to the impact of climate change on many aspects of our nation's social, economic, and sustainable development, health and well-being, a key part of the solution is beyond our shores. Honorable Chairman, Kiribati acknowledges the progress report on climate change environment, and health, and will continue to work closely with development and relevant key partners at the global, regional, and national level to ensure interventions are tailored to our national context to ensure we contribute to maintain the healthiest and safest region. I thank you, Honorable Chairman.
Thank you very much. Now, may I call on representatives of Malaysia?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Malaysia takes note of the document WPR/RC70/8 on the progress report on the implementation of WHO Global Strategy on Health, Environment, and Climate Change. We wish to thank WHO for the strong commitment and effort to support member states in the implementation of the global strategy, specifically the support given to Malaysia for capacity building on vulnerability and adaptation assessment of climate-related health issues from August to December 2019. There are various adaptation measures adopted by Malaysia to enable government healthcare facilities to be resilient to floods and other diseases due to climate change and continue the delivery of healthcare services to the public. The adaptation measures include upgrading the existing healthcare facilities frequently affected by flood, enhancing and sustaining health services, preparedness and response plan, and capacity building measures for the health personnel. Various guidelines and plans have been developed to strengthen the preparedness and response plan for crisis and disaster. With climate change, more transboundary haze is expected as a result of more intense drought and higher possibility of forest fire in the region. Indeed, Malaysia had experienced many episodes of poor air quality due to transboundary haze because of forest fire in the region in recent times. Strong commitment by all member states in the region is needed to address the recurrent episodes of transboundary haze. Starting from August 2018, the Air Pollution Index, API, used in Malaysia takes into account the fine particles of 2.5 micron and below. The concentration of 6 air pollutants are continuously measured 24 hours a day through a network of 65 air quality monitoring stations across Malaysia. Water resources and water quality is vulnerable to the impact of climate change. In Malaysia, the National Water Resources Policy was established in 2012 to act strategically toward ensuring that the demand for water by all user sectors is met in terms of quantity and quality. It provides strategies in water resources management to ensure water security and sustainability. In addition, the Ministry of Health is continuously strengthening the monitoring program of drinking water quality and the rural water supply and sanitation program that has been implemented since the 1970s. Malaysia has embarked upon a sustainable program in all healthcare facilities to continuously reduce carbon emission and reduce the impact on climate change. Under the program, we have been leading by example in the public sector and aim to be in the forefront in implementing sustainable strategies towards green building certification in the country. The Ministry of Health is the first ministry to support the government initiative in Malaysia by implementing large-scale energy efficiency and renewable energy program. Green technology is promoted into the projects and activities to spur green building movement. Application of green chiller such as oil-free magnetic bearing and solar absorption has magnificently improved energy and environment by introducing efficient equipment as well as environmentally friendly products. The health sector plays a vital role to advocate other stakeholders on climate-related issues through various platforms. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Now, may I call on representatives of Japan?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Japan welcomes achievements attained by the steady commitment based on the Western Pacific Regional Framework for Action on Health and Environment. Japan participated the Pacific Islands Health Ministers meeting held in Tahiti in August, and the Asia Pacific Forum on Health and Environment chaired by the Philippines in September. We deeply understand and concerned of the devastating impact of climate change on national health system in the region, notably in Pacific Islands. Japan itself is confronting the increased health hazards by typhoons and severe heat. At this moment too, a fierce typhoon is approaching to Japan. We adopted the National Adaptation Plan last year. It is vital to prevent and control health damage of climate change. Efforts to train human resources to enable appropriate and prompt information sharing, precautions, and preparation for emergency response are very urgent. Securing domestic financial resources for this purpose is indispensable for us. We request the UPRO to accelerate the climate change measures based on global strategies and regional framework. We ask the UPRO to continue collecting scientific evidence on the impact of climate change on health and examining the linkage with the health crisis initiatives and health systems initiatives. We also recognize a request for further cooperation with the Green Climate Fund, created to support the efforts of developing countries to respond to the challenge of climate change. This issue was raised in Pacific Islands Health Ministers meeting and Asia Pacific Forum on Health and Environment. Japan is one of the major contributors to the Green Climate Fund and has a seat in board. Japan is making efforts in facilitating communication and cooperation between WHO and the Green Climate Fund. This was Japan's statement on climate change, environment, and health. Now, I would like to touch upon Fukushima issue because there was a country mentioned concern about it. First of all, it is Japanese government responsibility to protect our people's health, and we will not take any measure harmful to all people's health, nor to health of people of the region as a country of this region. As you may know, since the accident at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power station, Japan has been appropriately providing the relevant information to the international community in a transparent manner. These efforts include more than 100 times of briefing session to all diplomatic missions in Tokyo and distribution of related information sheets on a monthly basis. We will continue such activities and will provide further information. The IAEA also has provided related information and reports for numerous times. Japan believes that matters related to the radionuclides and radioactive materials should be discussed in more specialized UN agency, such as the IAEA if necessary. However, I will explain very briefly 2 points. Firstly, contaminated water from Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power station is filtered and purified by multi-nuclide retrieval equipment called Advanced Liquid Processing System, ALPS. Most of the radionuclides, except for the radionuclide called tritium, are removed by this ALPS system. As you might know, tritium is a radionuclide, exists naturally. In a normal operation of nuclear plants worldwide, water contains tritium is discharged into the sea and the atmosphere every day in accordance with the international standards. What I would like to clarify here is that there's a clear distinction between the contaminated water, highly radioactive, and the water filtered and purified by the ALPS system. And Japan will not, under any circumstance, discharge the raw contaminated water. And let me clarify that we are now discussing the handling of the water treated by ALPS system. Secondly, till today, no decision has been made about how to handle this water treated by ALPS system. No discharge of ALPS treated water, therefore, has been made to date. If it were to be discharged, Japan will follow international standards such as ICRP publication. Discharge that does not meet the standard will not be done. As I said in the beginning, it is Japanese government's responsibility to protect all people's health, and we will not take any measure harmful to all people's health, nor to health of people of the region. I hope my explanation helped the member state to understand the situation. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Japan. Ladies and gentlemen, it's almost time for coffee. But before we break for coffee, I would like to make a brief announcement. Yesterday was a special day for one of our member country in the Wipro family. It was Fiji National Day. On behalf of our regional director, Dr. Takeshi Kasai, and Wipro, we would like to wish Fiji a happy National Day, and may your country continue to prosper under the leadership of your government. And on that note, we would like to celebrate with Fiji by inviting Honorable Minister from Fiji, Dr. Wanga, to lead a special mobility break now.
Before the break.
Before the break. Thank you, Minister. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll resume our interventions on climate change, environment, and health. With that, may I call on representatives of U.S. territories.
Thank you, Chair. Before I start, I want to send a shout out to all my honorable female colleagues. Today is International Girls' Day. Yay! Your perseverance have led you to be here, my honorable colleagues, so I'm very honored. Thank you. Honorable Chair, the U.S. Pacific territories are very grateful for WHO WIPRO for bringing the issues as a thematic priority. Yes, extreme weather events affect public health, and resilient health system is necessary, and the U.S. territories support WIPRO's strategies. Super typhoons are becoming a normal event in the chain of the Mariana Islands, especially since especially for us, all of the 3 territories I represent here are very close to the equator. However, it was never normal for a generation to experience 2 major super typhoons within 3 years. The short time makes it difficult for the territories to catch up and recover without additional support. In 2018, Super Typhoon U2 destroyed fresh food supplies such as bananas, coconuts, and mangoes. I haven't eaten a mango in a year, so thank you, Philippines, for providing the mangoes. For islanders, the reaping of these fruits is our pride and our life. For months, we were forced to rely on imported fresh fruits and vegetables. Also, we are seeing a higher risk of exposure to disease-carrying mosquitoes that carry these and other viruses. Last month, Guam confirmed its first locally acquired dengue fever in 75 years. So thank you, WHO WIPRO, for prioritizing the need to make people and communities safer with respect to rising sea levels and other climate impacts. Protecting the local ecosystems to be more resilient and our cultural systems to be stronger and healthier is needed. Our people in the community need assistance to effectively plan and implement climate adaptation strategies that work for their community. It is obvious that we can't avoid the effects. However, by adopting strategies that work for our Pacific communities, these strategies can help make life in the Pacific safer and healthier for more years into the future. Thank you. Sizus Maasi, Olamwai, and Fa'afatai.
Thank you. Now, may I call on representatives of Nauru.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Thank you, Dr. Kasai. Climate change is a hot topic within the Nauru government. The presidents of Nauru had the honor of addressing the 74th session at the UN General Assembly in Geneva last month on climate change. We share the same concerns of our close neighboring countries of Kiribati and Tuvalu. Nauru seeks WHO support in progressing on climate change and health in the WIPRO region. In building resilience to climate change, Nauru is progressing towards the Higher Ground initiative, where major infrastructure and housing will move to the interior parts of Nauru. Although there are many advancements in some areas of climate change in Nauru, we need to put health in the center of climate change, as presented by Dr. Corinne this morning. This will be a priority of mine, health to be the focus of discussion in relation to climate change dialogue. Terba, thank you. Isabella San, Minister for Health, Nauru.
Thank you. Are there further comments? No? I understand that there are representatives of non-governmental organizations who wish to make a statement to the committee. Once again, both written and oral statements will be uploaded to the webpage and the app. And as always, statements reflect those NGOs' views and not necessarily the views of the World Health Organization, including its member states and secretariat. It is now my pleasure to call on the representatives of Public Service International to be followed by representative of the International Federation of Medical Students Associations to deliver a short statement to the Committee on the Climate Change, Environment, and Health Progress Report. Thank you.
Thank you. PSI is a global union federation that brings together over 14 million workers in more than 300 health unions across 156 countries and territories, including the entire Asia-Pacific region. We thank the Chair for this opportunity to comment. We recognise the interconnectedness of human and intraplanetary health and call on those present to urgently act to reverse the impact of human-induced climate change. We must take a whole-of-government health impact approach if we are to prevent mass extinction. We cannot ignore the health impacts of more coal mines, of continued reliance on fossil fuels, of further deforestation and fires, and of the endless pursuit of profit over people. We advocate for stronger targets and international commitments to reduce carbon emissions. We celebrate the actions of unions, civil society organisations and some governments who took a stance with the students of the world on September 20 in calling for urgent action. We agree with the importance of political will for tackling the existential crisis arising from global heating and the need for broad societal awareness. The responsibility for this rests squarely with the member states. The principle of social and generational justice also requires that countries and companies contributing to global warming contribute significant financial amounts to mitigate the climate crisis in meaningful, evidence-based ways. We call for the support of a tripartite approach to a just and equitable transition, and we support the call for a global green social contract. This is crucial. All of our talk, all of our best intentions, all of our debate this week will be irrelevant on a dead planet. We have 12 years to act. Let this be the first year of significant action. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Honorable Chairperson, Regional Director, distinguished delegates and excellencies. Climate change is posing an unprecedented threat to our health and health systems. Extreme weather events and pollution have already caused harm to human health by creating reservoirs for emerging and re-emerging infectious diseases. To address the issue, being hopeful is never enough. The FMSA believes that member states need to take and act more ambitiously and urgently. This includes identifying and acknowledging the severity of the climate crisis that we have put ourselves into, and take actions as a matter of urgency with regional approaches. We urge the member states to work together and invest more time, effort, and finances into mechanisms to achieve measurable carbon reduction, create jobs, and contribute to a more sustainable world as per the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, as well as to construct resilient health systems in the communities of this region. As future and premature members of the health sector, we as medical students would like to share the responsibilities to inform policymakers and the public on the health impact of climate and environmental change. The FMSA will continue to play our role in educating the public on the effects of climate change on health, while advocating for the integration of climate change and its threat to health into the curricula of medical schools worldwide. Together with the millions of youth generation humans who marched the streets all over the world in September, we call for prompt actions from policymakers, businessmen, and healthcare sectors to combat climate change and environmental factors of health. The FMSA remains eager to further enhance our work and collaboration on the climate crisis with government leaders, WHO, and global youth generations. I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. In addition, I understand that the representatives of the following non-governmental organizations have submitted a written statement to the committee: the Royal National Lifeboat Institution. May I now call on the Secretariat to respond to the points that have been made? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And maybe I should start by thanking Mr. Wanga to helping us mitigating the impact of climate change on vector-borne diseases and making us actively reducing mosquitoes population in this room. So thank you for your contribution. So I was requested to take the floor and respond on behalf of the Secretariat. The reason is that, as you know, the Regional Director, Dr. Kasai, has established climate change and the environment as one of his top priorities. Of course, we have heard that the impact of climate change is very important in the Pacific, and therefore a platform will be established which will be hosted by the office in Fiji. However, it is clear that while the platform will be established in Fiji, it will cover climate change and the environment, meaning equally the issue of environment such as air pollution and so on, which are a key issue in the Asian countries and others. So that's the reason I was asked to take this the floor. So now I would like to thank all the speakers for the very rich comments and the overwhelming examples and interventions that were made. Thank you for your support for the report, and we take note of your comments. The comments went from the diversity of the region. We heard how diverse it is, but as was mentioned by one of the speakers, it's a common climate change and environment is a common challenge mentioned by China, but also Fiji mentioned that we need to champion climate change as a group because it is a battle of our own existence, and I'm quoting here. So we have a number of agreements. The Paris Climate Agreement was mentioned, I think, by Vietnam. And we usually consider it as a public health treaty. It was mentioned several times. It includes the right to health. We have a number of World Health Assembly resolutions. It was mentioned as well by some speakers. And WHO Regional Director, Dr. Kasai, again, has put climate change and the environment as one of his top priorities. So the commitments we don't lack commitments. What we need now is action. And we heard a number of things from you, things that have happening already. So we took note of the actions that you are taking, such as relocating, unfortunately, some of the health facilities. But we also heard the issue of the inability of growing some of the local food, leading to health insecurity in Nauru, for example. And actions, a number of you mentioned partnerships, and partnership in a very broad way. UN, but also other sectors. Philippines mentioned the Interagency Committee. Tuvalu mentioned the United Nations, but Singapore, I think, also mentioned the individuals, the communities, and getting people also engaged at all levels. Some of you mentioned the banks like ADB. But Tonga, who I think mentioned ADB, also mentioned fragmentation, and I picked up on that point because that's a key. There are so many partners that we need to ensure that the fragmentation is addressed. And Cambodia mentions that we need to work collaboratively and effectively with others, which is, of course, a way to ensure that we address fragmentation. We took note of your call for technical assistance in a number of areas, guidance, the need to use lessons learned. There was a mention of water and sanitation, in particular in health facilities. This is something that has already been picked up by the regional director, and we will move forward in addressing and taking it as a priority action. There was also mention of the transboundary haze issue by some member states. We will look into what we can do and how we can support. A number of member states called or presented on building resilience in health systems. We heard good examples from Cambodia, Singapore, Philippines, Malaysia, just to name a few. But also the importance of monitoring the impact on climate change. And I will just make a summary in 3 points. But before doing that, I would like to acknowledge the Republic of Korea for the support to the GDSO. Thank you very much. And also, there was a mention on the Green Climate Fund and the progress that WHO is making or not toward being an accredited agency to the Green Climate Fund. And we would like here to thank the government of Japan for the support as being a member of the GCF. We do appreciate the support of the board members to move forward towards accreditation of WHO as a Green Climate Fund. So now if I try just to summarize this very rich discussion in 3 points. Health is at the end of the climate change causal pathway. We all know that because we face that in our daily life. So we heard from you that we need to advocate. We need to advocate to make human health part of the discussions, the negotiations and actions. Too often, the image of climate change is not about people. The link between climate change and health is overlooked or even missing. So we now need to think of health as an investment and not as an expense. So the first message is that we must put human beings and human health at the center of the climate change discussions and actions by ensuring that health is considered in policy discussions that have implication on climate change and health. We can do that also by thinking co-benefits, which are additional benefits resulting from policy, but are not the direct intention. So number one, advocate for health to be at the center of climate change discussion and action. Number two, we also need to mitigate and adapt ourselves. And this was mentioned in a number of interventions. Our work can actually be climate sensitive. And a number of you mentioned building climate resilience into health system. So we must develop medium-term and long-term plans to do that. But we can start now. We don't have to wait. When we have to renovate a health facility, why don't we make it right away green and safe, which is what we call the smart health facilities. So we have to develop medium-term and long-term plan. But in the meantime, we can act now. And thirdly, we also have, and you called on the Secretariat to do that, we also have a responsibility to monitor the impact of climate change on health and health systems, including the impact of action taken to mitigate and adapt. So that was one of the work that will be done in the frame of the platform, but in collaboration with the regional office and the GGSO. So we are moving towards the establishment of this platform that will also embrace the work on the monitoring framework. So I think I've tried to summarize in these 3 points this very rich discussion. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much to Dr. Corinne Capuano, our WHO representatives for South Pacific and Director, Pacific Technical Support. That concludes our considerations of the progress reports. Ladies and gentlemen, we now move to agenda item 15. Special Program of Research, Development and Research Training in Human Reproduction. Membership of the Policy and Coordination Committee, document WPR/RC70/10. May I now request the Director, Program Management to introduce this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mr. Chair, distinguished representatives. The WHO Special Program of Research, Development and Research Training in Home Reproduction established the Policy and Coordination Committee as its governing body. Presently, the committee has 34 members, including 14 member states representatives elected by WHO regional committees for 3-year terms. 3 of these are allocated to Western Pacific region. At present, the 3 member states from our region are Fiji, the Philippines, and the Solomon Islands. The term of office of Fiji expires on 31st December 2019. The regional committee is now requested to elect 1 member state to succeed Fiji for a 3-year term starting on the 1st of January 2020. With several rounds of consultation, the regional committee may wish to consider Japan to be the member of the Policy and the Coordination Committee, and as such, to nominate a representative upon WHO's formal request to the Minister of Health to serve on the committee for a 3-year term from the 1st January 2020 to the 31st December 2022. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Liu. Are there any comments? If there are no further comments, I take it that the committee agrees that Japan should serve as a member of the Policy and Coordination Committee of the Special Program of Research, Development and Research Training in Human Reproduction. We now move to agenda item 16, time and place of the 71st and 72nd sessions of the Regional Committee. May I now call on the Regional Director to say a few words regarding the venue and dates of the next two sessions of the Regional Committee. Dr. Kasai, please.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. First, regarding the 71st sessions of the Regional Committee next year, as you heard earlier this week from the Japanese minister, it is proposed that the sessions to be held in Japan. Regarding the date, it is proposed that the sessions be held from 5th to 9th October 2020. Second, regarding the 72nd sessions of the Regional Committee, it is proposed that this will be held from 4 to 8 October 2021. And I understand that there are several countries are interested to make a statement to the committee on this potential venue. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Kasai. So firstly, do representatives agree on Dr. Kasai's proposal that the dates of the 71st sessions of the Regional Committee will be held in Japan from 5th to the 9th of October 2020? Thank you very much. I understand that a representative from Japan would like to make a brief statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much, honorable ministers and distinguished delegates. Honestly speaking, I was all the day this week very anxious and worried if everyone will agree to come to Japan. But now it seems that we got the unanimous support to Japan on this issue. So we will do our best to have a very successful regional committee meeting. And also we will do our best to entertain you energetically and also in a way of Japanese way, in a Japanese way of hospitality. So next year, we are now planning to have the regional committee meeting, not in Tokyo, but in the city of Kobe, which is in the western part of Japan and close to Osaka and Kyoto City, World Heritage City. So with Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I would like to show everyone a very brief video to introduce the city of Kobe.
Please, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I feel this video put too much emphasis on food. But definitely we will work hard for the regional committee meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Japan. Are there any other comments? Representative of China, please.
Mr. Chair, Dr. Kasai, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, the Western Pacific region is a highly diverse region. China, as the most populous developing country in the world, has a magnificent and splendid civilization of 5,000 years. Since the founding of the People's Republic of China in 1949, remarkable progress has been made in health. For a long time, China has maintained good cooperative relations with the WHO Western Pacific region and countries in the region, making joint contributions to the development of regional health. In order to deepen cooperation with all parties, we are pleased to offer to the Regional Committee to host the 72nd session of the WHO Regional Committee for the Western Pacific in October 2021. Regarding the specific dates, we hope that we can keep close communication with Wipro. Thank you.
Thank you very much, China. Any other comments? Representative of Fiji, please.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. And thank you, Japan and China. Can I just wish to be registered that after China, please consider Fiji for the 73rd meeting. And we will do a lot more slapping.
We'll get Singapore to export the mosquito to Fiji. Non-harmful mosquito, there is. So with that, we in agreement with the 71 already. And for 72, we agree that China will be hosting the 72nd Assembly. And for the 73rd, Fiji is in our mind. We'll confirm that next year. So if there are no further comments, I take it the committee agrees with the above discussions and may ask the rapporteurs to prepare the appropriate resolution. Thank you. Now, we come to the closure of the session. I understand that the Secretariat has prepared a highlights video. Let's have a look. Thank you. I understand that the representative from Australia would like to say something.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of Member States, I would like to convey our appreciation and thanks for what has been an extremely productive and well-run meeting. I would like to move the following resolution of appreciation. The Regional Committee expresses its appreciation and thanks to the Chairperson, Vice Chairperson and Rapporteurs elected by the Committee, the representatives of the intergovernmental and non-governmental organisations for their oral and written statements, and the Regional Director and Secretariat for their work in preparing for the session and the meeting arrangements. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? I take it the resolution is adopted by the committee. Thank you. I also understand from the Secretariat that a draft report on this session will be sent to each representative who has been present. The covering letter will indicate a date by which your comments should reach the regional office if there is any need to make changes. After that date, if the regional office has not heard from you, the draft report will be considered to have been accepted. Are there any questions or comments? Now, may I call on the Regional Director to say a few words. Dr. Kasai.
Thank you very much, Honorable Vice Chairpersons, Honorable Ministers, distinguished representatives. It has been another very, very busy week, but I think it was successful RCM. First of all, I would like to thank all of you again for your very strong support to the white paper. I was very much greatly encouraged by your comments on the document on Monday, but actually I noted that not only Monday, the white paper was continuously referred or cited throughout this week. I know that the language we used in the white paper are not really English, such as backcasting or grounds up, but I appreciate that many English-speaking people start to use that language. But I also noted that still grounds up is not the plural for English people. But this grounds up, the purpose is to really encourage people in the policy level, the Ministry of Health people to really pick up the innovations occurring in the community. And it's not just a single. That's what we notice. That's the reason why I added S, and then we call it grounds up. I was told that in the forest, when the tree falls, if there's no people, the sound doesn't heard. Very obvious fact. Now in our regions, when I went around the countries, I noted there are so many innovations are occurring to address the challenges that we haven't faced in the past. And I really wanted to bring those innovations on the table so that people can learn each other. But to do that, we need to continue to encourage the people in the central level to go down to the community and bring up the innovations. And I'll make sure my team would really go down together with you to pick up those innovations so that we can share those best practice and we can make these regions one of the safest and healthiest regions. Our aim of this white paper is not to make this vision as my own vision or my team's vision, but to make sure that is the vision shared by every member state in this region. And the interventions that I heard made me feel we're achieving this. And again, so thank you very much for all your effort to organize a consultation in each of your country. And then again, bringing that discussions back to this regional committee and then make this as a shared story. So really, thank you very much for that. We also work very important 4 technical agenda this year. One is the aging and health. One is protecting children from the harmful impact of the food marketing, tobacco control, and antimicrobial resistance. All these items are actually link each other and are also captured in the white paper. And I think we made a very clear signal to the outside people that we are now really looking for future, and we're also paying attention to the children, which I very much also appreciate this committee's acknowledgement. It was also a great pleasure to acknowledge the countries achieving disease elimination target. Congratulations again to Kiribati for eliminating lymphatic filariasis. And I know that there are several countries also queuing for the future. And I'm looking forward to continue to work together with you to make also other countries achieve this elimination. And this is a wonderful achievement for the health, not just for your people, for today, but for the future generations. I think Kiribati people would very much appreciate your team, that you'll be free from this lymphatic filariasis. Again, so congratulations. In a few areas, we'll try to organize our discussions a little bit different to, again, previous year. For example, with a panel discussion on aging and health, we did slightly different than the usual technical discussions. And here I wanted to again thank the Honorable Minister of Singapore, Minister Gan, who really committed, prepared, and then tried to share what they have learned in their country. I very much appreciate. And he's not here, but I wanted to also send a message to Professor Seike that he originally tried to come, but the other business prevented him. I also appreciate him. And we also organized a WHO working country session into the main agenda meeting. And I'm very much looking for your feedback. I personally think this is a very important session to explain what we are doing, but more importantly, what kind of characteristics we have in the country office and how we fully utilize those attributes in delivering what we think it's a good country support. And again, I wanted to emphasize here, Dr. Shin's vision was keeping the country at the center. And in the coming 5 years, I wanted to continue to pursue that vision. And when he says a country at the center, it's not just strengthen the country office, but we mobilize all the resources we have to deliver the better output at the country level. And to do that, I wanted to continue to support the DG in his transformations to make headquarter, region, and country office work as one. And at the regional level, I wanted to make sure our WHO Collaborating Center and our partners can be also part of that resources. In addition to that important business, I think this has a even stronger highlighted with my speechwriter that our formal sessions and informal sessions contribute to this RCM. First, side sessions, we had again a very important topic. One is that on healthy and poverty, this was actually very much encouraged by the government of China, and in many countries are echo, and I think it was a very good side event. Thank you very much. And digital health, during the white paper discussions, we were told that the innovation is going to be very, very important factors. We're still not there yet, how WHO can really contribute in moving these innovations, but we thought that why not we start in the side event. And again, the government of Malaysia and several countries buy in this idea, and I think we had a very good side session. But then we put a very unique side session, safe and affordable surgery, with the very strong leadership from the surgeon ministers, including Honorable Vice Chair, and then the Fiji minister, and then the former Minister of Tonga, and then we missed this time, but the Minister of Palau. They really wanted to advocate the safe and affordable surgery as an important component of the UHC, which I am already convinced. And I'm very much looking forward to work together how we can move this agenda forward in our region. And of course, Monday, informal RD reception. I'm sorry to report to Dr. Shin, but I think my RCM performance quality was higher than his one. And I'm very much looking for. Japan delegation mentioned that the next one is more energetic. I don't know what does it mean, but I interpret that we're expected to have even higher energetic performance to beat the Japan's performance. I interpret that way. But again, thank you very much for your contributions. We're continuing this with the very obvious reason. One, we really wanted to appreciate your hospitality when our secretary members work in your country. But two, we wanted to generate a more and more family-ish feeling. We listen to others, we understand, and we try to share our experience and find the solutions together. So I very much appreciate everybody's contributions. And this is not a joke. I'm seriously asking you to already start considering the performance next year. And of course, I would like now to thank excellent office bearers, Chairperson, the Honorable Minister Park Myung-hoo from the Republic of Korea. I think we're so lucky to have him as a chair this week. Unfortunately, he needs to go back because of the unexpected things, but I really appreciate for that. And of course, very able Vice Chairpersons, Honorable Dato Dr. Isham, for his excellent work as a Vice Chair, and Ms. Emma Caters of Australia, English Rapporteur, and Dr. Mario Melvin of the French Polynesia, France, our French Rapporteur. And please accept this small gift. It says in the script, but this is what we do. Yes. The script doesn't say how we do. Gift to gift. Me. Oh, yeah, that's all. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please delete that photo. Come on this side. Obviously, we had some mistake, right? We have to make sure we give the rights. Are you sure? Yeah. Thank you. Last year, I have to give you the game up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for receiving our gift, although there's some small mistake. But now, I also wanted to thank all my staff who have been working very hard to prepare for this RCM and to ensure that our meeting runs smoothly this week. I also say that once the meeting starts, I always say that once the meeting starts, that means if you prepare well, the meeting is over. And thank you to all the WHO staff for your hard work. You can all, can I say this is a script? You can all take this afternoon off. Honorable Minister, it has been, again, a very busy and tiring week, but it has been a pleasure to be working together with you towards our shared goal to make these regions one of the healthiest and safest region. It was my first RCM, but with your support, I feel I achieved something. And I'm very much looking forward that day by day we continue to achieve towards, again, the goal we set in our white paper. And now it's for us to start to implement and add the new chapter in our story. So I'm very much looking forward to working together in the coming 5 years. So thank you very much for this.
Thank you, Dr. Kasai, our regional director. So on behalf of member states, I also like to thank Dr. Takashi Kasai and the Secretariat for their dedication and hard work for this session of the Regional Committee. Are there any further questions or comments from the floor? If none, I now declare the 70th session of WHO Regional Committee for the Western Pacific closed.
Congratulations. Thank you.